The communists were led by a guy named Mao Zedong, and we just call him Mao. Okay? And the Chinese always fucking say, Shek Zhen, and they sometimes it's spelled with an X. Okay? Sometimes that J is an X. Have you guys ever heard this before? Have you taken it? Zhen? Shaq. Sometimes it's called Shaq. Okay? I'm not O'Neill. Pronounced the same way. So, who does the United States of America want to win this debate, obviously? Now, we were the nationals. Now, Shaq was not a particularly good guy. He was kind of like in Vietnam. We didn't like, the guy who we were supporting was not a good guy, but at least he was our guy. Same thing here. Okay, you have this really, really long war between the nationalists and the communists. And you can see, this is actually, does a good job on this. If you look at page 539, there's a cool little graphic there where it says, they're very different. The nationalists were supported by the United States, and essentially the military organization was ineffective. And of course the communists, led by Mao Zedong, were supported by the Soviet Union. And of course we all know who wins this. Because today China is communist. Who wins this? Yeah, Mao, the communists win. Okay, Mao Zedong wins. And of course the United States sees this as really, really bad news. In 1949, what is the biggest country in the world? What is the, as far as population is concerned? China, right? And so what happens is, we see that the biggest country in the world has fallen to communism. Good news or bad news in the Cold War? Bad news. And Mao hated the United States. Okay? And not just because we wanted to support Czech, right? I want to read this section for you. It says, Mao had welcomed wartime contacts with Americans, but soon decided that they themselves were leaning to the side of Czech. Mao will fail to understand that the Truman Doctrine and the Truman administration was doing this reluctantly under pressure from the China lobby in Washington, D.C. Preoccupied with European reconstruction, beset with anxieties over their own conventional military weaknesses, the overstretched Americans were planning no such thing. But Mao's fears that they might be were enough to bring him down squarely on the side of the Soviet Union. Okay, so it says Mao made a trip in December 1949 to Moscow, his first ever outside of China, to meet the leader of the world communist movement and to work out a common strategy. The visit lasted for 2 months and in the end produced a Chinese-Soviet treaty, roughly analogous to the North Atlantic Treaty signed almost a year earlier, in which the two communist states pledged to come to the assistance of the other in case of an attack. So, here's my question. Are the communists of Russia and China close, or are they kind of distant from each other? Did you listen to what I said? Mao went to Russia for 2 months, okay? And so Mao is closely aligned with the Soviet Union. And this is really bad news for the United States. Okay, very closely aligned with the Soviet Union. And that comes in handy here in about 2 years, because what war are we getting ready to go into here? On Tuesday or Monday we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about, not Vietnam, that's Korea. And we're in the Korean War. And guess who comes to the defense of the communists in Korea? China does, right? But if we defeat the Chinese in Korea, then who's going to come to the defense of the Chinese? The Soviet Union. You guys see what I'm saying? Okay, and so this is really, really bad news for the United States. Now, let's talk about the internal politics of Mao for just a minute. I want to compare something. Let's compare Stalin versus Mao. This is the best way to understand it. Okay, Stalin versus Mao. Okay, now, what was the name of Stalin's plan for industrialization and feeding everybody? What was it called? I think it's called the 5-year plan, right? Stalin had the 5-year plan, and it resulted in what? Lots of starvation and famine, absolutely. Okay? Mao had a plan, okay, the same thing, remember collectivization, where everybody's going to live together, eat together, kumbaya, we're not going to have any private ownership. He has his own plan. It's called the Great Leap Forward. The exact same idea. Question, how does it work out? Same way, actually kills a lot more people. When you look at the Great Leap Forward, some people think that it kills many more people than the other one. I believe the number is 20 million dead. If there's anybody who can compete with Stalin for worst guy of the 20th century, I think the one guy who can compete with him is, in fact, Mao. And Mao was a butcher. He was also a pervert, but we won't get into that in the high school class.